Good evening. Welcome back to Pump Up the Volume. It's Tuesday evening. My name is Luis Daniel Muñoz, non-practicing physician, also independent gubernatorial candidate back in 2018 in the state of Rhode Island. And I'm joined today by my fellow co-host. We are missing one. So again, shout out to Bill Bartholomew out there doing big things, but we're looking forward to having him back. And still here with Scott Rotunda from WBOB 990. Also, Scott does a lot of work for community advocacy and in the city of Pawtucket, and is always bringing us the latest updates on the national news front. So it's great to have Scott back. Back. I mean, he's a co-host. We're all back. But also Mr. Pat Ford, co-founder of the Libertarian Party in the state of Rhode Island. We oftentimes have disagreements on the show about approaches and implementation to change. But that's what makes this group great. And also, Pat is the founder of the Coalition Radio Network, which we're actually streaming through now. So thank you, Pat, for the medium and creating this safe space to amplify the voices of communities. We have a special guest today. We have Tina Jeanette Pedersen. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Good. If I didn't, okay, great.
You did.
And okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tina. So Tina is the founder, president, and CEO of RAMP, that is, Real Access Motivates Progress. And also, Tina sits on the Governor's Commission just to be clear, Governor's Commission for Disabilities, and is actually the vice chair of that commission, or is it vice president?
Yep.
The vice chair.
Vice chair.
And vice chair, thank you. And also is on the transition team for the soon-to-be Governor of Rhode Island, Mr. Dan McKee. And also, Tina has a show on the Coalition Radio Network, so please check that out as well. Last week or the week before, I'm kind of losing track of time, but Dr. Chan from the Rhode Island Department of Health was talking about vaccinations. It's a great interview. Check it out. And given how things are changing with vaccinations, I think it's good to have a nice little update of where we were. And hopefully he'll be back on Tina's show to see where we're going. So with that, that's the introduction. But thank you for joining us again. And Scott, would you like to lead us off with maybe a couple of updates on what's going on in the national front? Oh, you're on mute, Scott. Sorry about that.
That's probably the best content I've ever had on the show. Those few seconds when I was muted, probably the. Sorry about that. So, yeah, nationally, impeachment part 2 has concluded, and although there were more than 50 votes to, basically to, remove President Trump, even though he was already removed, so I don't know, it fell short of the 2/3 margin that you need of the 67 votes. The big thing I was looking for out of that to convict him would be to preclude him from running for office again, because I do have that feeling in the pit of my stomach that in about 3.5 years, he's going to come out of the woodwork and either influence the Republican primary or try to come out of it. And unfortunately, I do think he'd probably have a better than even chance of coming out of that primary. What was interesting to me, though, 7 Republican senators actually voted to convict and aligned with the Democrats on that. I was hoping there would be more, but still 7 is a lot. And the reaction to them in their home areas, I hear like Susan Collins is getting censured. The North Carolina GOP is censoring their senator. And it really makes me feel terrible because I feel like the GOP has become the Trump party, the party of one man. And unfortunately, it looks like, Cult 45 was not able to get exorcised from the party. But now I look at it also from President Biden's point of view. And if I'm him now, I don't want to chase Trump anymore. I just, forget him, let him slink away. If I was him, I would want to move on and show what I can do for the country, which I think we're getting a sneak peek of tomorrow in his town hall at 9 p.m., where we're going to learn all about his $1.9 trillion bailout. That's my thoughts on the national level. On the local level, as far as locally and with COVID response and vaccinations, still disappointed at how far behind we're lagging. I mean, it seems like Connecticut's doing well. Massachusetts is doing all right. And I can't help but wonder, a couple of weeks ago, I actually chided the Rhode Island GOP for sending a letter to the governor saying, why don't you set a time, like a set date that you'll step down? But now I find myself, believe it or not, kind of agreeing with them. I think we need that because right now we're in this inertia. I feel like we're on this COVID highway, and Massachusetts is full speed ahead, and Connecticut is full speed ahead, and we're stuck in neutral, kind of coasting down Thurber's Avenue. So that's my thought there. I would really like to see her. I was really upset that Ted Cruz kind of put the hold on her nomination because we'd have Governor McKee now. Instead, we're kind of paused. But I would just hope that, again, as governor, you have to be a leader. It's not about you. It's about the people you're charged with taking care of. And, if Governor Raimondo really takes that seriously, I do hope that in her best heart, she would see it's time to set a date to step down. She's going to be the Commerce Secretary, just a matter of when. And, let Rhode Island move on, and we just kind of go from there.
Thanks so much for the update, Scott. And I agree. At the end of the day, a leader should be thinking about the communities and that they serve, right? Not themselves, and not focused on self-preservation. And all that we see magnified in this transition is self-preservation. But it is great that it's magnified, because at the end of the day, we also know that the majority of voters in 2018 did vote. When I say majority, I mean greater than 50% did vote for Governor Raimondo, after having hints that that ultimately this administration did a lot to turn out fires, but not really to inspire and empower, right, communities. And so this is just the summation of many years of the same. So with that, and with the update, Scott, which I appreciate, and giving us some insights on the national front, I really want to hand this off to Tina and just kind of put the ball in your court. And I'd love to get your perspective from where you sit, both on the governor's commission as well as on the transition team. You're seeing the modus operandi of two different administrations to some extent. And I'm just wondering how you see the situation evolving with vaccinations, and I would love by the end of that to get a sense of whether you think the McKee administration will actually understand how to handle this crisis and, vaccination program.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, number one, thank you for having me on the show tonight. And yeah, I have many thoughts on it. I do think we're behind the 8 ball on the rollouts and getting the information out there, but definitely from the disability community, signing up for the special needs registry, either with your local fire department or online. They're actually texting and calling people. So we're getting in with the 75 and older if you have an underlying. So we are getting in there, but it's hard because I've gone to some of the sites, or I've heard from some of the sites that they are vaccinating and they're not making them accessible because, there's snow piled at the end of the thing. So even if you were in a wheelchair and you fit all of the criteria, you still can't get in. So now you have an appointment and you can't access it, whether you're using a walker or a wheelchair or, on crutches, or just having a hard time walking, or talking about 75 plus. So that they're having a hard time walking, that, what I mean? They're getting up there in age. They need to make these sites more accessible for these people. They keep talking about having rollouts where they're going to come to people's homes who can't get out of their homes, but you hear about it, but we're not seeing it. So there's a lot of chatter and there's a lot of talk. But like you said, we're kind of in limbo where Governor McKee wants to go forward with this, but yet he's not the full governor yet, so he can't. Governor Raimondo was very vocal and very out there, but we haven't seen her in months. You know what I mean? I get it. She's moving on, but we need to make a change. We need to make a move at this point because we need to move forward, and we're not. Getting the word out there, towns and halls, the city halls, they're just not getting the word out enough and then we're not getting enough vaccines. So even if they were getting the word out there, we don't have the numbers that we need to get the vaccines out there. So I'm kind of tossed all the way around.
Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. I'm interested. And there are confidentiality agreements that have been signed. Please feel free to withhold this information. But just really interested when we hear this across the current administration, and even some individuals that are representing the incoming administration. This idea that it's about vaccinations in, vaccinations out. And in part because I support the deployment of a vaccination system in our neighboring state, even though I live in Rhode Island, I see that it's more than that. There's an infrastructure of software in between the shelf that has the vaccine and the desk where it's going to get dispensed into someone's arm, right? Or injected in someone's arm. And so, is anyone actually talking in this incoming administration about that system, about the software system, the logistics, and how to address what Rhode Island has, encountered as being problematic with contact tracing, right? They create situations where they can't scale operations. Everything is manual. Everything is like who you know. We started to see some link sharing in Rhode Island, right? So it's almost like if you have someone to navigate you through registration, it works better. But what if you don't have someone to navigate you? So like, is anybody talking about these problems in the software side?
They are definitely talking about them. They are definitely talking about all of that. But again, because he's not actually our leader yet or our governor yet, there's no movement to it. So they can talk all they want. We need a definitive answer so he can make moves on what's going on. The problem with it being too is we have this software and everything, but the age of the people that it's open to right now, most of them don't use that software. They don't use the things to get out and to get the vaccination. So it's a slow boat to China is the way I say it, because they have everything in place, but the age that they're working with doesn't have it to get out there. That's the problem. It's the communication, the leadership. I mean, like I said, Governor McKee is fully on board. The problem is he can't have the final say right now. He can't make it move forward. Then we have the problem with the technology of the 75 and older can't access the technology to get signed up. I get calls every single day. I mean, hundreds of calls. How do I sign up? How do I get on? I don't have the technology. I don't have the link. I've been sitting online. I've been sitting on hold. I've tried 25, 30 times today. No one picks up the phone. We have the disconnect. We need to close the gaps and we need to figure it out.
So if McKee has no power at this point, why was McKee, from your perspective, really interested? Like, why was there this proposal to change the specific demographics that were covered in phase one? Was that purely, that was just an announcement that maybe would have caught some fire, or was there some real substance behind it in terms of power, like the ability to actually?
I think there's definitely some substance because she was supposed to have already stepped down by now. I mean, we got word a couple of weeks ago that it was her last weekend in office and she's still there. So I think when it rolled out, there was some real power behind it because we thought it was going to move forward. Now, like Scott said, we're sitting in limbo. Like, she's got to make a move at this point. She's got to do what's best for Rhode Island, and she's got to make a move. Governor McKee is ready to jump on it and move forward and put in action everything that's been said, but he can't because he's not in power yet. She hasn't stepped down yet, and this transition was already supposed to happen by now.
So I want to do something a little different now, just to make sure, because I feel like I'm hogging the mic here. Let's all get a question in. So Scott, Pat, if you can think of a question you'd like to ask Tina, given this area of either the transition team or vaccination specifically, or the commission that Tina sits on it, and I'll start just to give you guys time. So my question is, given where we are in this crisis and the comeback that we need to have, everyone says comeback, but what do you think is the biggest threat that everyday Rhode Islanders will face in the next 6 years that is not specifically the disease itself, but somewhat related to the systems in Rhode Island and how they function? What would be one example of something that keeps you up at night?
I think not getting the people that need the information. Like I said, the biggest populations that are being affected right now, as much as people don't want to, is the elderly, the disabled. We're not getting the information. There's systems in place, but the information is not getting out to them. And I think there's a break in the system that we need to do better. We need to get the information to the people. The people need to have a say. And I really believe Governor McKee is going to let the people have a say. He's put this transition team together. I mean, I've been sitting on many meetings right now, and the people are ready. They're ready to make the move. We just need to get the word out to the people. And that's who he's listening to. And I really think it's going to be good for Rhode Island going forward. But we need to start the systems yesterday. We need to be on it yesterday.
Okay. Thank you.
My turn?
Well, you jumped in that, so go
Hey,
for it.
well, and this question may surprise you, Doctor. But Tina, let's focus on you and I for a moment, because when I ask this question, it clearly doesn't apply to you. You run a variety of social media campaigns. You run your own not-for-profit. You engage on a business level with people around the community, and you also host your own video podcasts. So clearly, you've got a fine grip on technology. Fair to say, I run a little burgeoning mini digital television network here, so I'm good with technology. But one of my great pet peeves in life is when technology is used for the sake of using technology. What I mean by that is, and I'll use software companies as a perfect example. I can't call anybody to talk about a software glitch I have. Now, despite the fact that I'm long-winded, I could probably cut to the chase and ask most questions and get probably most answers in a 3 to 4 minute time span. Instead, I will spend days responding to email back and forth from folks on different shifts who are focusing on different parts of the issues, probably don't understand the context of my question, and as a result, get nothing done. Tina, you represent a constituency that, unlike yourself personally, many of whom, because of physical issues, availability of technology issues, having, quite frankly, the right framework to operate within, for 100 different reasons, technology for the sake of technology seems to be an everyday occurrence. From your perspective, and all the people that you talk to, because it's astonishing, folks, if you're just listening to Tina for the first time, the range with which her personality, her intellect, her knowledge of the situation, and the fact that, quite frankly, she lives a similar life. It's amazing how many people in these different communities she talks about she's in contact with on a deeply personal basis, almost 7/24 seemingly. For how many people out there is simply a problem of using technology for the sake of technology when a damn phone call would probably solve most problems?
I would say that would be the best thing that they could ever do. It's not even the technology for being technologies with my community too, because a lot of us are very technically sound. It's the problem that the software is not accessible to us. It's not accessible websites. It's not accessible to find the things that we need to find, whether we're blind or hard of hearing or, physically incapable of actually typing something because we're quadriplegics. But a phone call would make a huge difference in the world. That's why we have the special needs registry. That's why in our community we have where everybody can sign up for, and it's a quick text or a phone call. Call this number and you will get somebody to answer the phone. If somebody would just pick up that phone,
right,
a lot of this would be solved.
Right.
But they don't have the manpower to have somebody pick up that phone. That's the problem.
Well, that's the one thing you and I will debate on, Tina, because there's plenty of people employed by the state of Rhode Island who've got plenty of time on their hands, and probably
none of them were laid off during all of this, and they got a paycheck during while everybody else is suffering. I agree with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Put them to work, picking up a phone and doing something good for somebody else. Because I'll tell you, I was a walker up until 7 years ago. Now I utilize a wheelchair, so I can see both sides of the coin here, and it's as much for the accessible people who are just older in age that it is for the disabled community. We're in the same boat. You just don't know until you actually have to live this life. But put these people to work. You're collecting a paycheck. You're not suffering like the rest of us. Pick up a damn phone. And I'm sorry, but pick up a damn phone and answer the phone and put the information where it needs to be.
Thank you. Amen.
So I guess my question, Tina, is this: so as you're on the McKee transition team, and as Dr. Muñoz mentioned, we're going to have to make our way back from this this meteor, this asteroid extinction level event almost called COVID that hit not just us, but the whole world. Being that Rhode Island is traditionally the last out and the first in for any recession, can you tell me that Governor McKee has some sort of plans in place, even if they're not fully formulated to the granular level, to kind of accelerate our economic recovery as well? And as an add-on to that, please tell me he's not going to have holdovers from the present administration in those roles. I think we need to see fresh faces there.
Yeah. I do believe he's going to make a lot of changes when he comes on. I think he's playing all nice. And this is just my opinion. But I do feel in my gut that he's going to make changes with his own people, because Governor McKee is a down-to-earth people of the people. He has put certain teams together for the financial and for the small businesses and for the disabled. He's got teams and he's got the best people in play to do certain things, and he's formulating a plan and he's making it powerful, and his first 100 days are going to be huge, I believe, anyway. But I really think he's going to make some changes, and his ideas are heading in the right direction. Whether they come to full fruition, I can't say that, but I do believe his words are in the right place. His mind is in the right place. He's got the right people in place to make the difference. Now it's just watching it all play out.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tina. I just have a hard time having faith in anyone that's been in the Rhode Island political system that long. But that has nothing to do with Dan McHugh. That's just more generally how I feel about Rhode Island politics, And the reason I say that is I think to take the bold steps needed to protect vulnerable populations, and not just protect them, but to empower them, right? Because empowering pipelines, economic opportunity, ability to survive and pay to live in this state, it's going to take a level of boldness that is not going to make establishment people happy. It's you have to be willing to lose friends over, especially if you've been in the system for that long. So that's my opinion. I just wanted to share it, but I'm really interested beyond my opinion and really looking into what a McKee administration might look like and might do. How I heard that one of these transition meetings, there were about 146 people on a call. Now, I've done some organizing and having a collective process and a third party that can facilitate a meeting that's that large, even if it's 4 hours. How much of this is just bringing people together to make them feel like they're being heard versus actually creating structure and an operational plan around how things will look? Like, is there a leader of the ship? Are there specific roles? I'd love to understand, like, how is the McKee administration already starting to operate?
Well, I think number one, he's having these meetings of 100 and something people because he's trying to find the right people for the right place. I think what it's going to take to put Rhode Island and actually the country back together is people need to open their minds to change, and we need to back him and give him the support. He's willing to listen to everybody. He's willing to listen to ideas, but he has his own ideas too, and he has his own way to getting things done. But he's open to working with everybody. He wants small businesses open. He wants people back to work. He wants the world to be open. He wants all of this. And he's listening to all of these people because he's trying to put the right people in place. On that call for 140, I wasn't the only disabled person on there, but I was the one that they reached back out to because I gave some ideas. I gave some things. You know what I mean? So now I can formulate my own team under him in my own section with people that are going to positively move ahead forward and have an open mind to change. That's the difference. He wants people that are going to make the difference, not take no for an answer, and actually not care to lose friends to make a difference for the better of Rhode Island. And I think that's what's going to make him stand out and make a difference.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. So
he's going to be our governor. But what I'm saying is he's going to be our governor. So we need to give him the benefit of the doubt, and we need to give him a chance. He's the one that's going to be a leader. It's not like we can throw him out. It's not like we can't do it. So people need to just kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, believe in him, and see where it goes from there. At least give it a try. If we're so upfront and put our backs to the wall and we don't even give it a shot, we're failed before he even takes office. So why bother? You know what I mean? We need to have open minds. We need to change our perspectives, and we need to do things differently.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think, I mean, we're all in this together. I mean, and that's not just like cliche. I mean, that's a fact. We need to support one another. I mean, we also need to hold people accountable. So at the end of the day, this McKee administration is coming in. The vaccination rollout already started. There's not much time to make, 8 weeks is a long time in COVID time, given that the variants just hit the state. And that, in 8 weeks, if you don't have a scalable system built out, you can possibly start messing things up. I mean, and I mean that, like, when we start scaling to the general population, if people start missing their second shot, that creates all types of problems, quality issue problems that can actually have health consequences, right, to it. I mean,
right.
We don't know, but it is potential. And so with that, I just want to, again, just hold the McKee administration just as accountable as the Raymond administration. Also acknowledge that, I think everyone in this call in one way, shape, or form is trying their best to help and to, even if this show just gives information and questions out there, hopefully we're seeding some things. Let's go ahead and start wrapping the show up, but I do want to end on a positive note today, right? So there are a lot of questions. We've all had friends at this point or someone we know that suffered under COVID-19. We don't know what this next administration will truly look like until it is given the reins, as you mentioned. But I'm sure we all have hope, right? We all have hope that's driving us forward. We have hope that is that we're leveraging, as you mentioned, Tina, to open our hearts up and our minds and to try our best to believe in our leaders. And so if we can end this show with going around the digital table here, and Tina, we'll end with you. We'll let you close out the show. It could be first or last, but I know that if we let Pat go last, we could possibly end this show with one of the most contentious statements of the day. So we're gonna have Pat go first, and then we'll go Scott, and then Tina, you can close us out. But Pat, again, I mean, and everyone, I mean, what is your hope, right? What is the hope? You can say your hope for the next few months, or you can say your hope for the next 6 years, whatever it's realistic, based on what you're thinking. But Pat, lead us off.
Yeah, I've been surrounded by far too many happy people tonight. Here is my hope, and it's a sincere one, and I'm not just piling on. The administration of Gina Raimondo has been, in my lifetime, perhaps one of the single greatest failures in government that I've ever seen at every single level, starting with her attempt to, if you will, impose a tax. It was called the Taylor Swift tax. On through here, every single stage has been an unmitigated failure. Her attempts to re-engineer the economy, failure. The amount of money lost through the Commerce Corporation, failure. UHIP, failure. Criminal justice system reforms, failure. DCYF, failure. Stadiums, failure. Soccer stadium, about to be a failure. Every single step. And I'm not. And what's astonishing about it is that it's occupied on two separate planes. With government, there's always going to be a contentious debate about personal philosophy. All right. Hers, I don't know that she has one, but her administration has been, in terms of philosophy and executing a philosophy, has been a failure, whether she's been attempting to achieve fairness or economic growth at the behest of the corporate state. Failure. But let's just, for the purposes of today's conversation, look at the rollout of the vaccine. Now, as someone who has been going to the press conferences for several months now, not the beginning, there's some warriors out there like our good friend Bill, who've been there since day one, but the rollout of the vaccine was something that has been allegedly in the planning stages since autumn. And it was done before we even knew we would have it. It was in place, I should say, before we knew we had a vaccine. It was being done proactively, which I thought was great. All right, you got to give them props. Right? They're talking about it. They're working on it. To be a state this small, as someone else pointed out, I think it was my good friend Mark Garofalo pointed out today on social media, to be a state this small and be the headquarters of the world's largest pharmaceutical chain, and yet to be very last. I quite frankly, I'm only being half facetious when they could have, at this point, taken the two big rest stops in the state, one in the southern part of the state, one in the northern part of the state, and maybe one at Dunks and just simply had a lineup, split the vaccines between the three and have a lineup, it would have been better. It just would have. I'm not aware of a way they could screw this up even more. I'm just baffled at how someone can be the ostensible Commerce Secretary for the United States and be such an unrequited, unrelenting failure at being. I mean, I don't know if this administration could organize a cookie drive, a bake sale. Wow.
And on that positive note and hopeful message from Mr. Pat Ford, we will then transition now to Scott. All right.
Okay, so I actually do have a hope. It's not so much for like a certain administration or for a political party or for the country, but it's really for all of us as Americans, and kind of inspired from last week's episode. Now, as we watched last week's episode, we were talking about the student loan crisis, and it very quickly transformed into three people with three very different opinions on how to handle said crisis, having a discussion about it. Did it get contentious? Yes. But we all showed mutual respect and understanding of everybody's ideas and knew that no one wants to screw people. No one wants to destroy people or destroy the economy. But we listened to three people not degenerate into name calling and finger pointing and blaming and all of this. And at the end, we actually ended with respect. And my hope is that that doesn't become the exception. Because I feel right now it is the exception, unfortunately. My hope is that maybe not today or tomorrow, once again becomes the norm. And we realize as Americans, we're united by so much more than that which divides us. And really, again, I go back to last week's episode. I mean, the differences we have in the grand scheme of things are window dressing.
Tina?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm up.
Well, I have to
as-
say goodbye. I always thought it would be awkward because if I didn't say goodbye in the end, so you can go ahead and then I'll just kind of say goodbye. But
Yeah.
you take as much time, as much space as
well,
as your
as
hope
somebody who is on day 37 with fighting COVID myself right now, and I've been quarantined since December 24th, so we think it's from a delivery that I actually incurred COVID. So I've seen all sides of this from everybody, and working from my computer. My biggest hope and my dream is everybody takes a deep breath, holds people accountable, but open your mind to change. Open your mind to a new perspective, because nothing is going to change if we are all so adamant of our own way and we can't work together. We are in this together. We are stronger together, and we need to work together. Even if we don't have the same opinions, because I'll tell you, people would rather write their will than talk about the disabled community, or, think about getting old and stuff. People just don't want to think about it. But we all need each other. We're all going to get old. We're all going to end up in the disability community in one way or another, whether you're on crutches or a hip, or is it temporary or is it permanent. We need to open our minds, and we need to work together, and we need to make change, but we need to make a move, and we need to unite Rhode Island. And I think the biggest part of that is our governor needs to step down, hand the reins over, and we need to stop moving forward. That's my hope, that we make a change and we make a difference starting tomorrow, and we move forward together, unified, all having our own opinions, politely and respectfully say our voice, but move forward together.
Thanks so much, Tina. And it feels like there was a building up. I mean, certainly Pat gave us something really down here, and then we were able to build hope on that. And all jokes aside, though, I mean, just to take the takeaways from Scott and Tina, and again, Tina, you really summarized it. I want to end the show just with a reflection. I had today that aligns with that. Even my own, I would say this. I'm going to talk about my own little bit of a struggle here, which is I think too often we allow word playing in politics to dissuade us from kind of seeing how those words actually really fit in our lives, right? Like, what is the real impact of these words? And the word for me has always been interesting is progress. Like, what does progress mean? Like, when we're fighting for progress, we know that there's just so many versions of it that people are advocating for. But at the end of the day, the one that makes most sense to me is not about any struggle I've had as an adult, but all the struggles I had as a kid. The moments I was hungry, the moments I saw my father struggle with addiction. And, when I think about the world that I'd hope to see, not only in the distant future, but even in the near future as we come out of this crisis, it is certainly one that's going to require, to your point, Tina, like a collective process. Certainly one that's going to require, as you mentioned, Scott, more discourse and more, debates of love. but it's also the aim, I would say, or the ends of that for me is to ensure that no kid has to look down at their broken sneakers and feel different. No kid has to look at a kitchen table and not see food on it. And no person has to look at a sick parent and feel like they can't take them to a clinic because they can't afford to. So that's my hope. And it's really just an extension of the hope that you've all expressed today. Well, two of us have expressed today, two of you. But to just, all jokes aside, Pat, Scott, Tina, and Bill's not here, but we do this show every week. Tina does her show as well to try to share as much information so that information can empower our listeners to do something, right? To take what's inside, that thing that drives them, and to point it in a direction that can make the world a better place. And I hope we've done a little bit of that today. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and look forward to seeing you next week here on Pump Up the Volume.